Welcome, friends, to Tanked Up, the podcast all about beers and video games. I'm one of your hosts, Ben, here for this episode with Aadil.
Hey!
Hey, should we get straight into it?
Yeah, let's make the most efficient episode ever. Oh, I can't believe I said those things. We know how good I am at that.
Absolutely, we're starting very, very late tonight. So our first episode is going to be our topic, which Aadil and I are going to jump into and just ramble for 30 minutes or so for this one before Lucy joins us a little bit later for games. So let's open up some beers. Aadil, what are you cracking into?
So this is a thing that it's this month's Beer 52 is all Garden Brewery collabs.
Okay.
And I wasn't going to pick them, and I realized actually the last time we really talked about Beer 52, mini topic, was how we sometimes get disappointed in them, as like the offerings are like either not unique or like it just feels a bit stale. And this is the kind of thing I missed. I remember they used to do like, this is the month of IPAs or whatever. Like they used to do, especially in the early days, where they were like showcasing a hop and they'd have a whole bunch from all over. And this is like, hey, Garden Brewery's collabing with 10 other breweries, so there's 10 beers. I think I have an 8-box or something, so I got a bunch of them, right? And that was it. It was no like brewed for Beer 52 filler kind of thing. It was just like, here are a bunch of breweries I've heard of. So I thought I would showcase that because like that's the type of thing I want out of my beer subscription. And yeah. So anyway, it's the Munich Hells because it's still fucking hot out. So a clean, crisp lager with bready and herbal notes, 4.4%, and it's Qajaq Brewery in Greenland.
Okay.
Qajaq maybe, depending on who's. But yeah, Greenland's ice is melting faster than any time in the past 12,000 years. Ice loss was around 1 million tons a minute in 2019. So nice little, here's Garden, here's
nice.
Qajaq, and information. So yeah, 16 breweries, my bad. And yeah, they seem to be saying a lot about restoring the earth with some sort of tithe. I don't know. Anyway, so I'll crack this, but while I pour and hopefully don't make a mess, you tell me about your beer.
Yeah, I am also kind of going for a collab. It's a new Bristol Brewery beer, but it's a collab with Size, which is a clothes shop. It's called the Heavy Duty Beauty, which is a double dry hopped IPA at 7%. It should have some flavour text. What it says is Simcoe, packed and juiced up to the max. Expect pine needles on the nose alongside massive fruit aromas. A tropical heavy duty beauty. So this was a collab because they've done oh no, don't spill it. Oh no. You wipe yourself up while I crack and talk about this. New Bristol and Size. I'm sure I knew what it was for, but it's gone from my mind. They made a beer to celebrate a shoe, an Adidas shoe.
Not on my mouse pad.
Oh no, it's gone everywhere, isn't it? It's all over the shop. We were going to be tight and good, clean, easy episode today, but it's not. It's all all over the place as usual with us. But yeah, a collab to celebrate a shoe that's coming out in the shop Size. And it's an Adidas one. I realise I'm sat here in a Nike top as well, just to go in the completely opposite direction. But yeah, it's a 7% beer. New Bristol Brewery do good beers. Doesn't really matter who it's with. It's going to be a beer.
I mean, yes, they usually make beers.
Yes. Aadil, we'll come back to you. Are you poured? Yeah. Are you clean?
I'm poured. I'm reasonably clean. Luckily, this fake pleather on the Secret Labs chair wipes beer off rather well, which was my main concern. My shorts I already spilt some stir-fry sauce on them when I was cooking, so they were going in the wash.
Yep.
Oh, that is crisp and zesty. Lemon zesty? Oh, what a good-smelling lager. It poured really well, but I like that it has a bit of haze to it.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's a Helles is normally quite clear, so it's nice to see just that little bit of it being maybe just unfiltered.
Yeah, I assume that's what it is. Oh, that's super refreshing. This is the beer I wanted all day long. It's, I mean, it's a really good Hellas. Like I said, it's got that citrus zestiness, but really it's got some lovely sweetish, um, apple notes to it,
Hmm.
which give it a nice round flavor. And then because it's a Hellas, it obviously it doesn't have a huge finish, but what is there is again a little light appley and your standard sort of, which is just like a more appley version of a standard lager finish. So light,
Mm.
like I said, just a bit fuller, a touch fruitier than you would expect.
Okay.
Oh, it's so light, and there's such interesting taste. I don't think this is gonna last long, just because unless I get talking or I spill again.
Mm.
Anyway, I think that's all I need to say. This is a really, really tasty beer. I'm gonna look more for Qajaq. Slash, I think this might be my first Greenlandish beer.
Yeah, I don't think I've had anything from Greenland. Yeah, like Lucy last week, actually, a craft beer brewery in Jamaica. Be interesting to see a little bit more about kind of what there is around the world in terms of craft as well. So as I alluded to in the chat, the new Bristol Brewery and Size collab is with Adidas, and they've basically they've made a shoe and then matched kind of the beer and the colours, and there you go. And there was then another one, a different shoe. You've got a preference? Nice light colours or?
I like the palette of the light one, but I would never wear it.
Blue. I think the blue, definitely the blue.
The dark deep blues work a little better for my type of shoe.
Pick the correct beer to go along with that. It's got a lovely big nose. It said it was going to. It's double dry hop, so you're expecting that. Mm-hmm. Lots of fruit, a lot of mango. That's really nice. You can see it's got a. Let's take it over this side away from my light. It is just not quite a solid block of colour as it sort of appears on there. There's a little bit of lightness around the edges to it. The head dissipated really quickly on there as well. But I like these glasses. These glasses have got a thick rim to them. You've got to get right in there. So.
And you've got the special edition one. The other one you got, the factory. This is the real one.
This is the left-handed giant one. The factory one, the one that doesn't have the left-handed giant, has a like, hey, put your logo here kind of stamp on
a placeholder thing. I think that's a collector's edition, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see if it's going on eBay for anything. Flavor-wise, this bit's lovely. It's very, very easy. A bit of carbonation. There's a little bit of tingle when you kind of first kick into it, and that pininess is trying to come in straight away. But I think it's maybe not overpowered, but it's quite light, that pininess at the start, and it builds a little bit, or as at least that fruity flavour starts to disappear. The piney, very slight bitterness comes out a little bit more. It's very, very light mango on the flavour, more in the nose than I'm actually getting on the flavour, and I think that's balanced again out by that bitter, that slightly more dank, slightly chewy mouthfeel to it, balancing out that fruity flavour a little bit, just to pull it down. It was quite sweet on the nose. This is a little bit more ripe. Maybe not just some mango in there, maybe a little bit of kind of light honeydew melon, something like that as well, something that's maybe a little bit not bitter, but a little bit kind of edging towards that way, which then leads, let's say, nicely into that dank and into that piney bitterness, which starts to ramp up sort of more towards the end. The fruit sticks around quite a reasonable amount, more so than I would have expected, but it is up towards that double IPA kind of range. I think it's about 7%, 7.5%, 7%. So it's a bit bigger to allow that fruit to stick around just that touch more, but it's very nice. I mean, just the nose has me kind of coming back.
I was gonna say, I see you smelling it a lot. Now I'm curious. I mean, with a double dry hop, sometimes you can have a really stark difference between nose and taste, and that's not. It can that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I'm curious how well those are. Let's say related, for lack of a better term.
The The nose is a bit sweeter, basically,
Mm.
but it's very inviting. It pulls you straight in, and then when you're presented with something which is a bit more dank, piney, beer forward, rather than it being, say, a juice bomb, it's quite a nice difference in those two. That the nose is inviting, it's sweeter, it's pulling you in, and then you're like, here's a beer, brilliant, perfect, exactly what I want. It's not that refreshing. It's not going to quench your thirst on a day like today, because it is a little bit more chewy, mouthfeel wise, a little bit more sticky. But that's fine for me for a nice 7% IPA. So,
before we move on to topic, I did want to just come back to. There is a nice light lingering bitterness that you wouldn't normally get off of a Helles. But also it's not. I'm sure you can see it. It's not that carbonated. Which allows that sort of more fruity, that sort of because again, those like appley notes aren't like in your face, but I think just because the effervescence is lower, it's allowing that taste to come out a bit more. It's still obviously a lager. It still has enough bubbles that I'm not like, oh, this is flat. But yeah, I just thought I'd mention that because like, if you were expecting the number of bubbles as a Stella, this isn't it. But that's also a really good thing, I think.
Nice.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, let's move on to our topic then. I'm going to let you lead in. Exactly which one you presented earlier. A bunch of topics, a bunch of talking points and things that you'd like to discuss. We've only got about 20 minutes until Lucy's ready to jump in for the and join us.
I mean, I was so I think I wanted Lucy around because she has actually played the two of the games, the two main games I want to talk about on the more technical beer or games level.
Yep.
So I'm trying to remember what the topic I said.
Well, there was a ton. There was.
Oh yeah, I mean, so the other thing is, look, Diablo Immortal. There's a whole bunch is coming out, microtransactions, but I feel it would be a disservice to talk about it also without Lucy because she is much more lenient on. Well, we got a breakthrough, and I don't want to speak for her, but maybe we aren't as far as we thought. But usually, there's often me shaking my fist at the world and Lucy being like, people should own their consequences. And I think, though that is true, there's some nuance, and also, it's not as simple as that. So I don't want to. Although now I've colored it with these high-level things and said we shouldn't talk about it. So instead, let's just throw it back at you because you did your E3 roundup, and I still haven't done all of my E3 research, so you can tell me, because that way you can just stop talking when the episode is near to be done. But you can tell me what I'm looking forward to. Although I think we should both talk about the litany of Final Fantasy VII stuff, because Lucy would rather us do that now.
That's a very good idea. I should probably try and find my my article.
Oh, I have it.
Bring up all of the things. Yeah, so if you go to outlives.net, you can see a roundup of all of the different shows. There's so many things to have to get into, and I know we talked about this previously. This change to kind of E3, whether it's good that we don't have this week where everything comes in, where there was kind of like 5 main shows, everything happened in that, and they were like, cool, we're done. Now we get show after show after show after show after show, and occasionally things are shown more than once. So say like for the State of Play, which happened the PlayStation 1, which was kind of the first thing that kicked off, and then Summer Games Fest, which happened maybe a week, maybe 5 days after that. Both showed the Callisto project, right? So the PlayStation State of Play showed just a trailer, and then the Summer Games Fest showed some gameplay. And whilst I like the vibe from the State of Play, it was the gameplay that kind of sold me on being like, yep, this looks good. This is what I want from this game.
Yeah, and I think jumping off of that, that's kind of how I view all of these things now. We're not an E3 where marketing has a very strong arm. Like I mean, sure, if it's narrative or setting based, or I want to see what the directors or what the game developers want to show me is this is a representation of. But I also just want to see the fucking game. Sure, I'm old now. I don't want to waste my time with this. And so if half a State of Play is these mini movies
Mm.
that are still not in game, or even like not, or even like the cutscenes that they are putting on the disc. Oh God, I said disc. Um, uh,
It's like the FMV, isn't it? It's like it's
yeah,
being
but like
completely
these aren't
different to
even.
the game itself.
Yeah, but these
we're
aren't
back to
even
the
the
90s.
FMVs, right?
Yeah.
Like these are just things that someone has cooked up. It's like, okay, not to mention where it's like, well, I guess everyone's doing Dead Space. Well, I don't need to see three different directorial interpretations
Hmm.
of games that are interpretations of Dead Space. I'd rather at least see the gameplay of the interpretations of Dead Space.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, and I think that's where I was with the Callisto Protocol. As I say, the gameplay kind of really grabbed me because I'm watching it thinking, oh, this is a little bit more tight. It's a little bit more fluid than Dead Space. And it'd be interesting to see what they do with the Dead Space remake, how they change that. If they go for like the Resi treatment in a remake and they take away the tank control, or potentially put a more tanky system in there for people to be able to use, but they've updated it in a way. But the Callisto Protocol looks a little bit more reactive than kind of Dead Space was, even though it is just more of that crumbly, dank, grimy, gritty space station where only half the lights work, everything sparks, and there's horrors hanging around. Great, I like that kind of stuff. That's fine. But it's something that kind of jumped out more and more as we have said. It was more the shows that were which ones? The Tribeca Games show, and the Day of the Devs, where they got into it more with the developers. So some of the games that they showed had a reasonable 5 or 6 minutes. It wasn't just here's a minute and a half trailer, here's a minute of gameplay, alpha kind of footage. It was, here is the game. This is what we're doing. Here are our influences. These are a few of the things you can kind of expect. Here is some gameplay. And I'm like, great. This is like a mini interview. This is perfect.
Yeah, and I think the cynical part of me is like, oh, some marketer realized that boy, do parasocial relationships sell, and giving a face to a game is really smart.
Absolutely.
That's the cynical part of me, but the honest part of me is, but also that I'd rather have someone in 5 sentences be over top of what the game is, tell me what their vision is, where it came from, etc. Than, like I said before, than some other person talking to the game devs, and then because they are a trailer director, because often the trailers aren't directed by the same people as the video game, because that's a different skill set.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
then it's just an interpretation through that person of whatever they gathered from the team. I'd rather the team be like, hey, this is what I these are the things I want. Here's it actually happening. And yeah, I'm not going to have the same intense vibe, but look, video games aren't movies, right? I'd rather see the video game be a video game, and that's a thing it's taken me a while to figure out and learn, and I'm glad that there are a lot of developers and publishers who have figured that out too.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, your video games not being movies versus your, video games being movies, have I got a press release for you, sir, that I shall send over to you about a video game movie that's coming out very soon. On, I suppose, a different note, a lot of stuff, it wasn't necessarily like a trailer alluding to the tone and kind of what was going on. There was a trailer for a game called The Invincible, which is a first person. I don't know whether it's a shooter. The trailer didn't show much shooting, but it was all kind of in-game stuff. So it's first person. You're on a planet and you are exploring said planet, chatting to someone over a headset, and you're kind of walking around, and there's lots of clues. There's lots of exploration that you've kind of got to do. If you want to search for it, type in The Invincible game, because there's lots of stuff that the Amazon anime comes up before kind of anything else.
I mean, Google knows me too well because they immediately gave me a Steam page.
Oh, good, nice. It just looks
you don't watch shit.
The trailer kind of gave the tone. It gave a little bit of what you were going to be doing in the game, and it is intriguing enough that it kind of got that balance right. Here is the stuff that you will probably be doing 80% of the time. There's maybe another 20% which is a little bit shooting. Maybe there's a few puzzles and things like that. But it's a very well polished looking experience. And I like something these days that I can take at my own pace, that I can just wander around an environment, that I'm not put under pressure 90% of the time, that it's going to be an excellent balance. And I think the trailer did enough to sort of say, yeah, there's other stuff, but we're not showing you that right now. This is the vibe of the game. This is what you're going to get most of the time. And I think it was just a very well presented trailer of gameplay for something that I hadn't heard of before. Like, what is this? Wow, this is great. You know, I don't know why space is a big kind of thing at the moment. One of my other picks was Boundary, which is a shooter, a first-person shooter, but set in space. So you're flying around in zero G around the outside of a space station, shooting at people, which looks absolutely nuts in terms of how you would traverse around those kinds of things. But space had this big kind of thing for me this year. So I think that kind of my
psychoanalyze why.
Yeah. We could. So I think they're my big kind of picks, really. There's lots of little things as well that I like the look of, like Time Flies and Angerfoot, Lucky Luna, Chia, the Cub as well was a really good from the Tribeca Games Spotlight or Showcase or whatever they called it. The Cub was a great game because it again gave you a lot of backstory, gave me a lot of kind of the devs going, we wanted to do this. This is what we're looking at. These are the kinds of things, and telling the viewer that it's kind of come from Golf Club Wasteland. It's sort of a sequel. It's kind of a prequel, but it's set in the same sort of universe, which is really good to see them doing a completely different game, but almost like what are their faces who do the SteamWorld games, making lots of different kinds of games, all sort of tangentially linked within this kind of universe, or the Endless Amplitude doing the Endless kind of games, Endless Legend, Endless Dungeon, you know, very different games but all set within this kind of mythos.
What I like about that approach is because they're different games, and like usually they're not explicitly in the same universe, it's so much more an aesthetic and a vibe that can carry through different genres, and and it matters a lot that these people aren't like so focused on, well, how does this make sense? Because it's not about plot holes and vibes versus things like Halo, which they should do that and then they don't, and then it's all like cumbersome, we'll say.
Yes, absolutely. So let's jump in then to the Final Fantasy VII anniversary thing. I think this has been the last stream, or the latest stream. I don't think there's been anything that has kind of called itself E3 or Summer Games something or something else since. There is an Annapurna showcase coming up in about a week, but I watched the Final Fantasy VII anniversary broadcast and it ran like absolute shit.
Was it on YouTube?
No, well, it was on YouTube, but I think they were streaming to Twitch and then using whatever internet magic to put it straight onto to
Restream,
YouTube, like with Restream or something like that. So it was running at like 10 frames a second.
Oh god!
In some of the elements, and it also like cut out about 5 minutes in because there were no subtitles, and then suddenly they kind of like reversed it and then played the same thing with subtitles over the top. So whoever was running that had an absolute shit show and has probably been absolutely bollocked, unfortunately. But what was shown was like kind of being a big Final Fantasy VII fiend. The stuff was kind of fine. I'm like, yeah, all right, sure.
I mean, I think in the background, for those of you who don't know, Square Enix sold to THQ Nordic slash Embracer, the bigger
Embracer,
group.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all of their Western IP
Hmm.
recently, which is, your Tomb Raiders, your Deus Exes, etc.
Lots of stuff it
And
wasn't doing anything with.
yeah, stuff they weren't developing with, but is like not like the IP is where the money
Hmm.
is because people, people will buy these games. But also were up until including now, very much in the we're going to Konami went for pachinko and Square Enix went for NFTs and play to earn,
Or
which is
they backed off that in the last couple of weeks, big time, haven't
I
they?
mean, they have backed off on it, but you know that this sell-off was like to fund into this nonsense, or like
Mm.
or something along those lines. Like, and so to see one of their most beloved games in arguably their most beloved franchise just be mined for nostalgia dollars, like that's so. Like, without that background of knowing just how they're approaching IP and how they're like business forward,
Hmm.
you don't seeing this list of games, you're like, wow, they're really trying stuff. It's like, no, they
Yeah.
are milking stuff.
Mm.
I don't have any respect for this platter of FF7 stuff as a platter because I know where it's like coming from. That's not to say I don't respect the individual things on the platter. I'm just saying the fact that it's like, oh, it's the 25th anniversary and we've got a million things,
Mm.
and half of them are the same thing that you've seen before, but with new sprites. I guess maybe I don't know what's a.
So it's interesting because stuff like the Crisis Core remake didn't look that much of a jump. You know, it's not at the same level of the Final Fantasy VII remake. It very
Well,
much
yeah,
looks much more kind of,
it's a remaster.
oh, it's a
So,
remaster rather than a remake.
well, so
Okay.
I think, I mean, normally this wouldn't matter because it shouldn't matter for what you're saying because you're talking about like fidelity and stuff.
Yep.
But the remake of FF7 was a reimagining
Yes.
along certain lines.
Reimagining is a much better term.
Yeah, I know why they didn't say that in the early marketing and release of the game, but I would call this the FF7 reimagining trilogy.
Yeah.
And they did say they finally like said out loud, it's 3 games. The second one's coming out soon.
Oh, do you think
Well, next year.
that they decided, you know, it was called Final Fantasy VII Remake. It's then called Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Do you think the third one's just going to be called Reimagining? Everyone's
No,
coming
I
up with
think
these
I think it's too
crazy.
many syllables for their marketing team. I really want it not to be re something, just
Mm.
to fuck up the alliteration.
Final Fantasy
Remake,
VII.
rebirth. Oh, what
It's
would it be?
done. Just part
Oh,
three
it'll be like
finished.
Return,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be a narrative loop
Yeah,
game. They're like, look, you
absolutely.
can keep playing it, and
Yeah,
next
yeah,
year
yeah.
we're releasing the remake too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Now
so
have it
Crisis
all on
Core,
2 discs.
yeah, Crisis Core is hilariously called Reunion. Um, that's the prequel, right? So Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion being the title of a prequel
Yeah.
to
Well,
a prequel
so
to the game.
again, reunions and things, that's all a big part of Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see why they might have chosen that. But yes, in terms of the marketing, I would imagine they're saying, no, not No, I know it makes sense for the story, but please don't call it that.
Yeah, and so what I will say is I'm really happy that like I've been thinking about selling my PS4. I don't know if it's worth anything, but I just don't use it. I
Yeah.
don't think it's been turned on in months, right?
Yeah,
And it's better money in my pocket than
absolutely.
right. But one of the reasons I haven't has been I haven't finished the remake.
Sure.
And remake Intergrade
Mm.
is on Steam, and it's the better version of the remake, which I already felt weird about when it's like, oh, I haven't finished it. Now there's a better stupid brains. And so it's like, oh well, you know what? Like that's like sure there would be more money on a game I own,
Mhm.
but also I could sell the PS4. and then half of that goes just straight to the game. Go to the game that isn't stopping me from selling the PS4, right?
And a lot of the time, I don't know whether Square Enix have a deal with Epic, because I think it comes out on the Epic Games Store before it came out on Steam as well. And Epic Games Store are very good at being like, hey, you've spent £5 with us over the last 15 years, have a £10 voucher. So actually, and they put it on sale all the time. So, you might be able to get it for like £5. So it's not exactly like you're having to shell out another £50 or so to, get the game again, to be like, I do want to play this again.
Well, and the other thing is,
and finish
I actually bought it on disc.
Yep.
So I can sell the disc as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? There's, I'm not making all that money back, but it's like, there's like a lot of easy ways of dealing with this. Except Bloodborne. Those were the two games.
I mean, Bloodborne is one that you may never play anywhere else. I know PlayStation are kind of making moves into the PC space with their exclusive and first-party developed games, but I think Bloodborne is a PS4 only game.
Yeah, it's why now I remember, because I have a copy of Bloodborne I got for £10, and it's like, I'd like to play it. I was like, do I care? But it's like, I really like Elden Ring, and I've heard in some ways, obviously Bloodborne's a more FromSoft game, but a lot of people say it's the best FromSoft game, while Elden Ring is clearly the best FromSoft game.
It's different. It's kind
of... Don't at me. I just mean in the sense of, like, there's so much more flexibility, and it still has all the same elements. So everything you can do in Bloodborne, you can do in Elden Ring.
Sure. Yes.
In that sense.
Yes.
I mean,
having not played Elden Ring.
Yeah. Someone's gonna at me and tell me how the linearity is the key, and like you can pretend linearity is different. Fine. I just mean, this is why I want to play Bloodborne, because a lot of people think it's a quintessential FromSoft game for specific reasons that you can't just that like they've moved away from.
Yep.
So that's Final Fantasy VII.
It is. So I'm gonna just to give us one more minute, then we'll jump back into our beers and finish out this little chat before we get Lucy back on for the next episode. I'm just going to run through the games that I think people should look at. So from the State of Play, I picked Stray. From the Summer Games Fest, I picked the Callisto Protocol. From Dare the Devs, I picked Time Flies. From the Devolver Direct, I picked Angerfoot. From the Netflix Geeked Week, I picked Lucky Luna. From the Epic Games Showcase, I had Chia, which is a game which we've seen lots of and has been pushed back to next year. From Tribeca, I picked The Cub. From Guerrilla Collective, I picked Boundary. From the Wholesome Direct, I picked Paradise Marsh. From the Future Game Show, I picked The Last Faith, which is a very Lucy game. Very incredibly blasphemous. It's like a Castlevania game, but for much more modern kind of sensibilities, death animations, those kinds of things. It looks really good. From the Xbox and Bethesda Games Showcase, I picked A Plague Tale Requiem, because of course. PC Gaming Show was the Invincible, and the Capcom Showcase, I picked Street Fighter 6, which wasn't actually shown at the Capcom Showcase. It was shown in the 30 minutes before the Capcom Showcase. There's also 10 Years of Dragon's Dogma. Does that count? I didn't pick anything from that because it's just
the one game.
Dogma, and the second one's going to be main, sure. From the Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary. Again, I don't think I had a pick. It's just, it's Final Fantasy. Cool.
Was there a specific, because there's a bunch of games we didn't mention, but is there any of them that like actually jumped out at you versus, look, I will probably, the ones that are coming in mobile and they're free, I'll probably try it. Was there something like, that is something I'm interested in?
So I think, again, not jumping into a debate about kind of like graphics and things like that, but the Ever Crisis, Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, which is the mobile version, and it's going to be every game. So it's all of the Final Fantasy VII games. So it's Crisis Core, it's Dirge of Cerberus, it's Final Fantasy VII, and they have been kind of, again, it's a remake, and you can see the difference in that the graphics have been uplifted to this kind of slightly more chibi kind of view. Not exactly chibi, but it's on that kind of level. And then in the combat, at least with the Final Fantasy VII part, it looks much more like the remake of Final Fantasy VII, or a little bit more maybe Dissidia kind of levels of graphics. That again, that PS4 kind of, or PS3, end of PS3, beginning of PS4 kind of level of graphics that's been brought into it. Kind of like two contrasting styles between here's the game, here's the story, here's the running through the world, versus the combat, which they're doing different things with as well. It's not just exactly the same battle system. It looks a little bit more like card based and stuff like that. So I'm interested to see what they have shifted around. But being able to play all of that, kind of just tapping away on my phone,
start to finish, yeah,
start to finish, absolutely is
yeah. Because the thing I like that got me then, I know the narrative is by modern standards and the adult standards is like going to be different, but that's the reason I've replayed that game the most of any other game except maybe Super Mario 1, although I've only beat Super Mario 1 a handful of times, is because of the story and my emotional attachment from, when I was an impressionable youth and all that stuff, right? Like, and so this, yes, I do care about the battle system. I like JRPG, old school JRPG styles, and like FF16 being not that, has me, like, part of me is like, oh. But like, if I want to sit through, and like, I haven't played all of the bits and bobs of that consistently or as much, so I would love to, like, the start to finish for the narrative reason.
Yep.
Especially on my phone if it lasts.
Oh, mine started doing some funny things.
Yeah.
It's new phone time for me.
Yeah.
Good. Nice. Yeah. We can sit there and play it, alongside, not quite alongside each other, but, at the same kind of time as well, which would be quite nice. Perfect. A very swift roundup on beers then. I would say for mine, I don't have much more to say. It remained as good at the end as it did at the start. The dank, piney notes faded a little bit, but the fruit stuck around. The fruit is the thing that stayed with this beer. You can't go wrong with a new Bristol Brewery beer.
No.
But yeah, pick up
they've been doing really well this year, I would say.
Yes, they have. The last 2 years, I'd say they've been absolutely smashing it. Yeah, completely.
Because they used to be, not to say that I have everyone has a ranking of like local breweries, and they weren't all the top when I first moved here and started having beers, and they've definitely floated up.
Absolutely. But again, they were kind of one of the first craft beer breweries in Bristol, so they have that bit of a peak. I suppose they had a little bit of a trough where they kind of maybe languished a little bit, but they've absolutely hit into.
Their stride is great.
Years. Yeah, completely. So,
and having an Adidas collab is very strange to me.
I mean,
it's like via size, but still, what a weird.
Yeah, I like the kind of like half Tron, half Back to the Future. Can art as well.
That's very good.
Heavy Duty Beauty is that bit.
I'm gonna. My interest is peaked. For me, I just want to add that they said bready and herbal notes. I didn't get as much bready. I mean, it's a bit, but the herbal notes. What I found interesting is that was a little bit of the herbal notes, and like I said, a bit of bitterness on the finish. About a third of the way through, my palate got used to that, and actually, like, these last sips, it's remarkably sweet. That sweet appley taste is like by far the thing you will notice on the finish, and you have to like look for some of those deeper, slightly bittered notes because your palate just, like, as we do with beers. But I found that really interesting because it ended because of that, it just ends really light. My last sip was just like, this was a light sort of hit of lagery appleness. Great. Where's my next one?
Yeah.
Like immediately, because in the beginning I was sipping a little less frequently because there was a bit of that bittering. There was like stuff going on, but as soon as my palate got used to it, it was like, nope.
Yeah, good. Nice.
Yep.
Nice. Perfect. So that's this episode. then for today. Our topic episode coming first, so stick around, friends, viewers, lovers, for the next episode where we'll be jumping into the games that we have been playing. And I think there's going to be a very shelled theme to the next episode. But join us then. If you can't wait, go to outoflives.net to look at all of the other things. You can take a little rundown of the E3 shows as well, a little bit more explanation into the picks that I have put up too. We are Tanked Up Cast on the socials. I'm at Nova_47. Aadil is
at the Omniarch.
And it would be really brilliant if you get in touch with us. Let us know what you think about the episodes. Let us know what you think about the beers that we drank or the games that we have been discussing, or your pick for the E3, not E3, Summer Games Fest, IGN Games
thing.
Jamboree. What, I don't fucking know what these things are called. Yeah, let us know. Or, as I say, go to outoflives.net to look at all of the other stuff we do. Thank you very much for joining us for this episode. We've been tanked up, and we shall see you very, very soon. Goodbye.
Ciao.
www.outoflives.net